Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host, Alex Lambert. Just got back from Darlington for the Southern 500, and let's go ahead and get on into it. And before I talk about the playoff troubles, the playoff drivers' troubles tonight, before I talk about the playoff standings, before I talk about the top 10 and the finishing order for this race, and before I talk about Erik Jones getting his third career win, his second win at Darlington after an amazing night, I have to talk about the heartbreaking loss, the top news story going into tomorrow morning. Kyle Busch engine blowing with 23 laps to go under caution after a dominating performance. I was in the stands. I heard the crowd explode when Kyle Busch, that was the loudest crowd reaction of the entire night when Kyle Busch blew the engine. And it was so disappointing. As a fan, I've been watching since 2013. And that right there was the most heartbreaking Kyle Busch loss ever, hands down. The most heartbreaking Kyle Busch loss, and it's such a shame. I don't know. I mean, I try not to be biased when I get on here and talk about the races and on this show, but I notice it. I'm a huge fan of Kyle Busch, and I was this season, man. It's like just to top off the season, the heartbreak from this year. I mean, you go back to Dover when he was going to win that race on his birthday, had a rare untimely caution take that one away. You go back to Las Vegas when a caution comes out with 3 laps to go, giving Alex Bowman the win. The All-Star race this year was dominating the All-Star race, had a tire go down. It seems like it's week after week. Losing to Joey Logano at St. Louis. This has been such a heartbreaking season for Kyle Busch, and the speed has not been there all summer, but before that, the speed was there. Couldn't get those wins. Got the win at Bristol Dirt, but man, you're talking about a Kyle Busch that could have 4 or 5 wins on the season right now, and has won, and that was a win he backed into essentially at a dirt race at Bristol. So it's such a shame. Like I said, I was in attendance. I got to hear the crowd roar. I got this sweet hat from the racetrack, but just such a disappointing night. The most heartbreaking loss, most heartbreaking Kyle Busch loss that I've ever had to see and witness. But the fans loved it. And, it's like Kyle Busch said, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. And, besides the heartbreak by Kyle Busch's engine blowing there with 23 to go, we have a great race to talk about and a lot of storylines to talk about. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into it. Another thing I want to talk about is just the engine trouble we saw tonight, or the mechanical failures overall we saw tonight outside of Kyle Busch. You saw the Kyle Busch mechanical failure. I don't know what that is yet. I haven't seen anything online about what that particular part was, so I'm not going to have too many comments on that. But, Harvick, car just catches on fire out of nowhere, burns through the dash, he said. He talked about that in an interview. Martin Truex Jr. sounded like a belt flew off, the engine belt, I'm not sure. The belt broke or snapped essentially, and ending his day. He was leading the race when that happened, and then all of a sudden, started losing position. He was actually able to pass Kyle Busch there at the later runs of the race, so that's a shame. You had Kyle Larson have a mechanical failure earlier on in the race. Luckily, it didn't end their race. They were able to continue and keep on racing. And actually ended up getting a fairly decent finish, a top 20 finish for Kyle Larson, top 15 finish for Kyle Larson, which is not terrible considering that left them above in the cut line. But man, just these next gen cars, the racing is fantastic, and we're able to see that. But I have a concern, and I think it came through tonight. Mechanical failure. We can't have these mechanical failures occurring, normally. I mean, you have drivers just have flat tires out of nowhere, and I think it's gotten way better, and I think it will get way better going into next season. So I think NASCAR is looking into this. I think NASCAR is going to fix a lot of these problems going into the 2023 season, which is fantastic. I hope so. I think there's some rumors that the drivers might be able to work on their cars a little bit more moving in the future of the next gen era, which also I think is a good thing, or the teams will be able to work on the cars a little bit more. I think that's a fantastic thing as well. But when I go to a racetrack, and I know the fans loved it tonight, but typically when I go to a racetrack, I don't want a driver's race to be depicted off of whether the next gen parts that they received from a vendor are going to work or not. I mean, that's how I feel. And I know they've done a good job. This is really the first time it's happened to the leaders at one after another. So I don't know if this was, and this could have been mistakes by the team. The teams could have put a part in the wrong place, not put it built together correctly, not headed to where it would last a 500-mile race. That's definitely something that is possible and needs to be addressed. But if this is a next-gen issue, if this is a vendor issue, it definitely needs to be addressed. Now, the other thing is Kevin Harvick, his comments after the race, he said he had a few foul words that he used there, saying these parts suck. He just blatantly saying it. He did not like the way this car is, but he explained that the car just caught on fire out of nowhere, no issues, and it burned through the dash. Oh my goodness. He said he couldn't even see because smoke was filling up the cab of the race car where he sits. That to me is not only, that's an entertainment concern, because obviously he's running up front, running for playoff position, didn't get to finish the race. He's now last in points, by the way, out of the playoff drivers. But more importantly, fire burning through the dash. What happens if you have a situation where a car flips and catches on fire? Is it going to burn through the dash? I don't know everything. I'm not able to see it. I know Harvick gets, some emotional sometimes and says some things, but Kevin Harvick said that the fire was burning through the dash of the car. That is a safety concern, and I think NASCAR, with these next-gen cars, we already have a driver sitting out right now, Kurt Busch, needs to look at, and we've heard multiple reports from last week at Daytona about, drivers taking harder hits, definitely. And I know NASCAR is looking into this, and I think the cars will be a lot safer going into next season and just a lot better overall going into 2023. But it definitely needs to be brought up, and it's definitely a point of concern that need to be talked about tonight on the show. I'm going to show you the top 10 real quick. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the top 10. I want to get to the playoff drivers quickly. I want to spend the most time on that. But Erik Jones wins at Darlington. I don't want this to foreshadow Erik Jones's win. All the bad, negative stuff that I talked about at the beginning, I want to talk about how big of a win this is for Erik Jones. His first win with Richard Petty Motorsports for that 43 car. I believe that's the 43 car's 200th win ever. I know Richard Petty got most of those, but it's still cool to see the 43 back in victory lane. I want to say that's the first time the 43 car has won since Daytona in 2014 in the summer race when Eric Almirola took it to victory lane. I believe that was the last time that the 43 car won a race. So that's super cool. Erik Jones, he's a super cool dude. He's a cool guy. I've been following him since his career started back in the Truck Series. Back winning that Truck Series championship, then racing in the Xfinity Series, a very talented driver. And like I said, this team, this Richard Petty team, really is a threat moving forward. You've got Noah Gragson coming in on the roster. I'm not trying to down-talk Ty Gibbs, but Noah Gragson's a bit of an upgrade if you ask me. And Erik Jones, these are two powerhouse drivers, and I think if these guys can get the money involved, it's even like the guys who are running this team said, we don't have a lot of time, we're getting older, we want to start seeing some wins. They got to win tonight. It would not surprise me at all if this team becomes a powerhouse team in the next few years, kind of like Trackhouse or something like that did, or a team like that did, because they're putting in the effort, they're putting in the money, and they have very, very talented race car drivers. And if they can keep them, which I think they can, who knows what this team can be in the next couple of years. It starts tonight with the win. I know the top two drivers had unfortunate issues that took them out of this race win, but Erik Jones was in third, right there to capitalize. Third place is no joke at Darlington Raceway in the NASCAR Cup Series, right? So a good win tonight for Erik Jones, and it'll be, I don't know if he'll get any more wins this season, not being in the playoffs, but it'll be interesting to see if he'll continue to run well going into 2023, which I think he will. Powerhouse team right now. This Richard Petty team is becoming, and I think will become in the future. Like I said, with Noah Gragson adding a driver going into 2023, that's a serious driver threat. They have the roster. They have Erik Jones and Noah Gragson. What more can you ask for? Denny Hamlin finishing in the second position after trying to get to him there. He gave him everything he got, but Erik Jones was able to hold him off there and get the win. Tyler Reddick was also really fast, using some strategy to get up there to third place. Logano might have been the fastest race car out of the entire top five, but with the dirty air just wasn't able to recover. Got a pit road penalty early on, got caught on the wrong pit cycle there. The caution came out at the wrong time, so a rough night for Joey Logano, but a fourth place finish nonetheless. And also he got some stage points as well, so he kind of stays afloat in the point standings. Now number one in the point standings when we look at those in a little bit. Christopher Bell, like I said, he's consistent everywhere. Thought he was going to be a threat today at this race. He actually gave Erik Jones a little bit of a tap there. Erik Jones used to drive that 20-car Toyota. So it's cool to see Christopher Bell get a top five there. Michael McDowell, sixth place finish, another good finish for him. Keselowski, not a bad run, finishing seventh, trying to find that speed for Keselowski's team. And then, of course, Byron, who got the win at the spring race this year, ended up finishing eighth. And then Bubba Wallace, driving the 45 car, had a good day today, had a pretty good run, had a good race going, could have got to top five there, finished ninth today. And then Alex Bowman ended up finishing in the 10th position. That kind of round out your top 10. Let's go through the point standings real quick. I want to go through them. here it is, the playoff standings after one of three races in this round. We have two races to go in this round. Darlington's down. We have Kansas next week, a 1.5-mile track, which the Toyotas are very good at. And then, of course, we go to Bristol after that, which Kyle Busch and some of the Toyota drivers are very good at as well. So two Toyota tracks coming up here for the remainder of the schedule. So I want to watch those Toyotas as we run through the rest of the season. But Joey Logano with the stage points tonight, the fourth place finish, running very well, obviously capitalizes, gets 38 points above that cut line. He is most likely safe going in. If he has two wrecks or finishes last 2 weeks in a row with no stage points, then that whole talk kind of changes, and that whole topic changes around. But I think Logano safe just has to run consistent, just has to make it to the end of the race, which is easier said than done for the next 2 weeks. William Byron having a decent run today, finishing in the top 10, getting an 8th place finish, 32 points ahead of the cut line. Denny Hamlin, once again, the points were so tight going into this race. If you got a good finish, got some stage points, that really helps you going into the second race of this round. Denny Hamlin 30 points above. Christopher Bell, a very consistent driver. I have him going on my playoff grid to the next round for sure, of getting a top 5 tonight, finishing 5th. Obviously now 28 points above the cut line. Tyler Reddick having a decent run, finishing 3rd. He was fast tonight. He wasn't quite race-winning speed, but he was up there, top 5 car for sure. 23 points above the cut line. Ryan Blaney, 20 points above. Larson, who had a rough night all night, actually went 2 laps down trying to fix a mechanical failure on pit road. Was able to come back from that mechanical failure, recover, getting 17 points above the cut line. So a decent recovery there for Kyle Larson. He said he was thrilled, and he said he was kind of happy and upset at the same time that he had an issue with the race car, but then of course happy that he was able to come back and get a somewhat decent finish. I believe he finished 12th tonight, so that's a decent run for him, 17 points above the cut line. Ross Chastain, didn't really see too much of him tonight. He run up front in the top 10 at the beginning of the race, and then kind of slowly faded as the race kind of got later on. The track temperatures cooled a little bit with the sun going down. So Chastain 15 points above the cut line. Chase Elliott finished dead last today after getting involved in a crash. He ended up getting hit. This was in the first stage, by the way. Chase Elliott got involved in a crash, ended up getting hit by Chase Briscoe, another playoff driver, and then, of course, you see there getting hit by Chase Briscoe, and then trying to fix the race car. You have 10 minutes now for the playoffs. I think that's for all drivers, 10 minutes for these playoff races to fix the race car, get it all fixed, fix the damage, and unfortunately, he did not fix that car in 10 minutes, so dead last finish for Chase Elliott. With all the bonus points he's racked up through the regular season, still 14 points to the good, but that's not as big a cushion as he would have had if he'd have just got a top 10 or top 15 tonight. So certainly a disappointing night there for Chase Elliott. Alex Bowman, 10 points above the cut line after having a top 10 tonight, so a decent run for him. He went into this race below the cut line. And then, of course, Kyle Busch, I don't even know what to say. Really what saved him here was the stage win. That's 10 points. And then the third place stage finish. So 18 points tonight for Kyle Busch. You take away one of those stages, he would be below the cut line. That shows you how important the stage points are. Plus, he does get to take the stage point that he won in stage 2 to each round following that if he makes it. So it's such a disappointing night for Kyle Busch. He could be up there with Logano right now, and instead he's sitting 11th on the bubble, so that's certainly very disappointing. And then, of course, Daniel Suarez not having the best night, having a ton of issues as well. Was able to recover, get a somewhat decent finish after a pass-through penalty. Got caught up in that untimely caution, so unfortunate day for Daniel Suarez, but he was able to come back up and salvage the day and gain 2 points on Austin Cindric, who is below the cut line. Then, of course, Austin Cindric, I don't know. I didn't even know he was in the race all day long. I'm not sure where he was at. And then, of course, you had Austin Dillon not having the best run either, 4 points below. Chase Briscoe getting caught up in that wreck with Chase Elliott. He was able to continue, rode around for a little bit, but was completely uncompetitive. I don't have him in my playoff bracket going out of the first round. He is now 10 points below. And then with Kevin Harvick's engine blowing up, or I guess it wasn't the engine. I guess the car just caught on fire there. Complete mayhem tonight. A lot of mechanical failures tonight, which is disappointing. Kevin Harvick is now 13 points below the cut line. He was very upset after this race at Darlington. We'll have to see what happens. But like I said, I mean, looking at this playoff grid, it's still super tight. I mean, it is not, a driver has not pulled away whatsoever. I mean, Joey Logano, Byron, sure, but those guys have 2 bad weeks. They have getting a wreck at stage 1 at Kansas. They'll be right there on the bubble as well. So it's still super close right now, super tight. Like I said, the tightest we've seen this playoff grid maybe ever. So We're certainly going to have to look and see how the results for the next 2 weeks affect the playoff grid. So that's it. That's really all there is to talk about after NASCAR at Darlington. I was at the race. It was a good time. It was a sold out crowd. The atmosphere was there. The energy was definitely there. I had a great time. If there's anything that I think NASCAR could do a little bit better job at, that's definitely the food service. It seemed like the concession stand lines were really long. I mean, it took a long time to get a pizza. It took a long time to get Diet Coke. You know how it goes. So that's one thing I think NASCAR definitely needs to look at fixing in the future. But a great race. I'm glad I got to go. It was a great experience. And unfortunately, about Kyle Busch engine blowing today at Darlington in the Southern 500, let's get rowdy.